What you're watching us on, any settings here, everything's set up.
This is being controlled. Thank you.
Everyone said.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
All right, that's, oh, good. Very glad.
Anyway.
Hello, everyone. Bienvenue à cette rencontre du comité de dérogation pour la ville d'Ottawa pour le groupe 1 urbain. Welcome everyone to the Committee of Adjustment hearings for Panel 1 Urban Area, and welcome back to in-person meetings. So it's good to see some people in the audience that we haven't seen in a long time in person, so it's great to see you. We are the City of Ottawa quasi-judicial tribunal that holds public hearings to consider Planning Act applications, including minor variances and consent applications to sever land. Our hearings are back to being in person. However, do know that the committee can enable remote participation by video conferencing when requested by registered speakers. You are live streaming on YouTube on the video, and the video will be archived and available for future viewing by the public on the committee's website. My name is Anne Tremblay, and I'll be chairing today's hearing. With me are some very brand new, some returning and brand new members. I'd like to introduce Member Blatherwick with us, who I think many of you would already know. We also have a new member, Ducaillier.
Hello.
We also have new member Coakley, yes, and member Keklikan. So this is our new panel for the next mandate of the committee. So, and we're all very pleased to be here. So in terms of the procedures for the hearing, they're going to unfold essentially as follows. So listed on the agenda and appearing on the screen from time to time are the applications that we'll hear today. For the sake of efficiency, I may deal with agenda items in a different order, which in fact we will do today. Note that the panel members have reviewed all of the materials related to the applications before us, including the planning reports and any written submissions in support or in opposition. Today, we'll hear oral submissions relating to each of the applications. As part of the statutory public notification requirements, each applicant is required to post a sign on the property in question before the hearing. We also are required to confirm in writing that they did so, or they'll need to swear or affirm that they today that they fulfilled the sign posting requirements. Otherwise, we'll have to postpone the hearing of that application. So the panel may ask for a brief presentation of an application followed by questions for the applicant and city planning staff. We will then hear from members of the public, starting with those on the speakers list. Finally, the applicant, who has the burden of proof, will have the opportunity to make final comments in reply. So please address your comments to me as the chair, starting with your name and spelling of your name if necessary, and your municipal address for the record. All presentations are limited to 5 minutes. Any exceptions are at my discretion. At the end of the hearing on an application, the panel will either make an oral decision or we may reserve our decision. In the latter case, the committee's decision will not be delivered during the course of the meeting. However, in both cases, and within 10 days, the Committee of Adjustment will send the official written decision and reasons for it to all parties, participants, and anyone who has requested a copy of the decision. Now, turning to some preliminary and procedural matters for the panel members, does anyone have any conflict of interest with any of the items that are on today's agenda for this panel or on either of the panels yesterday? All right, for the record, there are no declarations of conflict of interest. Secondly, confirmation of minutes, but believe we don't have any minutes today to adopt. In terms of withdrawal or adjournments, so we have no withdrawal applications, but we do have an adjournment requirement in this case. So we had an issue with an error on the notice. So we've already spoke with the applicants in question and have had a chance to recirculate. That application will now be heard on the 21st of June, and that's for number 3, 297 Glynn Avenue. So with that, I believe that takes us pretty much to our applications, but I want to ask, is there anyone either in the audience or online who has any questions about how we are going to proceed today? All right, seeing no questions, then I think we can start with hearing. I think we're going to start with number 1, which is for 66 O'Connor Street. And so I am looking for our agent. Mr. Semenyak? Semenyak.
My name is Semenyak.
All right, and can you just give us, your address, your municipal address, where you work, just for the record?
So I'm the principal at Urban Chaos Design, and I live in Alta Vista at 1453 Portal.
All right, thank you. So the committee is not requiring a presentation from you today, so I'm going to open it up to questions from the members at this point. Is there anyone who would like to ask Mr. Semenyak a question on the applications? No one? All right, so I'm going to turn to our planner. Are there any comments that you would like to make at this point on this application? Is there any further information or anything we need to know?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, okay. Well, in that case, I think there's a lot of clarity around the application is what I'm sort of concluding at this point. I have one person on my speakers list to address the committee and remotely, and that would be Ms. Rutherford. Do we have Ms. Rutherford in attendance online? Yes, we do. All right, Ms. Rutherford, if you can come forward. Do we have Ms. Rutherford? Hello.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and the committee, for having me to speak. I want to thank, the coordinator as well for making the process very smooth and being able to participate as well. I just had a couple small questions about the application, particularly with regards to the tree plan. I live next door at, or am renting next door at 664 O'Connor. And I just noticed in the tree plan that there's a few trees on the adjacent property that also weren't noted. And just wondering if there was any clarity to if those trees would also be included in the private tree removal.
All right, thank you. Mr. Simonic, is that a question that you can answer for us?
My understanding is that the trees are just dealt with on the property for 660 O'Connor. And there was one tree that was a common tree on the line that was an agreement that that could come down because it would pose a hazard to the construction in both houses.
Ms. Young, did you want to comment further?
Thank you. All the data I have is on the report, so I'm unaware of other trees on the site. If there are other trees that are jointly owned, then they should be included in the report. However, if they are under 30 centimeters in diameter, then they aren't protected under the bylaw, and it would simply be a civil issue between the two owners of
Correct.
those trees. So it depends on the size, and that is something that should be checked.
Okay. And the arborist has been there and we've provided the report for the work, so.
Okay, well, that's all I have to go on right now. So,
okay.
yeah.
All right, Ms. Rutherford, is that sufficient for your purposes?
Thank you. Yeah, that did provide clarification, and thank you to Ms. Young for clarifying the diameter one, which is included in the bylaw. I don't know if this is a question to the application, but it could be a question to the committee of, I'm new to Ottawa. Would this be considered infill, as like a housing infill as identified in the noise bylaw?
I'm going to ask Ms. Alcatip if you could please answer that question.
Sorry, what was? I'm lost.
Ms. Alcatip, the question about whether or not this constitutes infill as part of the policies of the city. I think that's what Ms. Rutherford was asking. She was new to the city, if I understand correctly, and just asking about whether or not this falls within our infill, sorry, definition.
I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm not sure.
Ms. Linker, is that a question that you can answer then?
Sorry, can I have clarification of what the proposed development is?
Basically what we're doing is we're putting a second unit in the basement, and because of the size of the basement, it's for the owner's parents. We're extending out the back into the rear yard at the basement level to give proper living space. So it's a functional unit. We're not carrying that all the way up, though we are adding an addition on the back of the main house. So my understanding would be it would be an addition. My understanding for infill would be to be taking the house down or adding a full second dwelling onto the property.
So it's an addition of a secondary dwelling unit or of a new unit?
It's a new unit in an existing single family dwelling.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Based on my understanding of the application, I believe that this would be interpreted as infill development due to the increase in number of units on the property.
All right, thank you, Ms. Linker. Any other questions, Ms. Rutherford?
I think those were my main questions. I just want to thank to you, Mr. Chair, or Ms. Chair, and the committee for allowing me to speak today.
All right, thank you. With that, then, I think that's the only person, I think Ms. Rutherford was the only person who was registered to speak. So let me just make a call out to either our online audience or our in-person audience. Is there anyone else who would like to address the committee on this application? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody else. I'm going to give one more call out to our members. Any questions based on anything we've heard today? Anything further? No, okay. Then, Sir, Mr. Seemack, I think it's up to you now. You have a couple of minutes to just summarize if you'd like.
So essentially what we're doing, the owner is moving from Barhaven into town. He's owned this property for 10 years. He wants to rebuild the interior of the property to bring it up to standard, re-insulate and add a second dwelling for his family, secondary unit in the basement. So this is really a family project, residence to be created in the area. So we find that it's fitting for the 4 tests, and that's really what the project is.
All right, thank you for that summary. So the committee is going to reserve its decision on this application. So I think we've received all of the additional information through this hearing that we need. So thank you very much. And we're going to move on to our next application.
Thank you.
All right. And with that, it does bring us to number 4. So I'd like to go to 23 Belgrave Road. And I believe I'm looking for Mr. Butler as the agent. Or sorry, Ms. Butler, my error. Do we have Ms. Butler remotely? My understanding is. Good afternoon, Ms. Butler.
Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you, so that's wonderful. We do not require a presentation from you, so I am going to open it up to the members of the committee for any questions that they may have for clarification at this point. Anyone? No? All right, so with that, then if there's no questions, the planner on the application then is, and just bear with me, gotta get to that, was that Ms. Elkatib. Anything you would like to add? Any new information that we need to hear from you on this?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority have already approved the request, but like with some conditions, and we would recommend that the applicant would stick to the conditions required. Other than that, we don't have any concerns about it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Al-Khatib. So, all right, so if there's no further questions and we have that summary from our planner, I don't have anybody registered on my list to speak, but I'm going to make a call out to anybody who's in the audience or anyone who's online. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the committee about this application, either for or against? Mr. Lalonde. Hand, please.
If I made through the committee, and nice to see you on panel 1, Madame Tremblay. I just wanted to say that the conditions that were required from the Conservation Authority are tied to the permit application process, and we wouldn't necessarily recommend or require them to be tied to the minor variance application. We'll handle them through the Conservation Authority process. So just to make sure that while there are conditions, they're not Planning Act conditions.
All right, so I just want to make sure I'm catching up with you here, Mr. Lennon. So if you've said that, like, I'm not seeing anything here necessarily.
Well, no, we didn't provide any objections to the Committee of Adjustment application. I think through the, I guess between the conversations with the city and the Conservation Authority, we noted that there was an approval that was subject to conditions. That's under the permit conditions, but they had nothing to do with the variance. So I think it's just more for information that the city was providing those. So I didn't want to tie up the application any more than it already is.
All right. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. So I'm going to go back to making a call out because I don't know that I actually took the time to notice at this point. Was there anyone who came forward to speak to the committee either online? I don't believe anybody in the audience. All right. So not seeing anyone. Ms. Butler, back to you. You've got a couple of minutes to summarize if you'd like to do so.
Yeah, I did provide a PowerPoint presentation. However, I hear that you do not require a full presentation for me. So thank you very much to the members of the committee in panel 1 and Madam Chair. Essentially, this application is to add a second story to our dwelling The address is 23 Belgrave. It's in the community of Rideau Gardens or Old Ottawa East. My husband and I have owned the property since 1999. We've done our best with the space that we have. However, we now have a 5-year-old and a 13-year-old. And our growing family, and as well the quality of life in the home, we need some more space. And also with the work from home from the pandemic, that residual working from home is still remaining with us. So a proper office is needed, something a little more secure than the dividers that I've put up in my back room. Yeah, so we're just asking for this minor variance so that we can go beyond the 20 square meters, which is the lesser of the two building in section 58 of the zoning requirements. Yeah, we'd like to remain in our home. Some people have asked why we don't simply just move, and we have looked into that as an option. Unfortunately, my husband passed away suddenly in November, and we'd like to, our children and I would like to continue on with these renovations. And I think what's really key for us is that we remain on Belgrave Road. We have some deep ties and an extremely well-established support system here on the street. And we'd prefer not to have to move. We'd prefer to stay here in our community.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Butler. All right, so with that, then the committee, if there's, and I believe there are no further questions, the committee is going to reserve its decision on this. So I believe we have, again, all of the information that we need to make the decision. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, with that, then we're going to application number 5 for 149 Willow, looking for Ms. McQuaig, and I believe Ms. McQuaig is with us today. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Nice to see everyone in person.
Yes, it's true. So Ms. McQuaig, we're going to require a presentation from you today. So I am going to open it up directly to the members of the panel for any questions on your application. Anyone? I am not seeing any hands up. Okay. All right. Then with that, I also want to give an opportunity to our planner. I just need to see which is it, Ms. Linker. Ms. Linker, is there anything that you would like to add or that we need to know further?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff have no concerns with the application.
Okay, thank you very much. So if there's no further questions from the panel, we have comments from our planner. Looking at the speakers list, I have nobody who's registered to speak. So I'm going to make a call out. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to this application, either for or against? Online, in person? All right, I'm not seeing anybody come forward. So with that, Ms. McQuaig, then I'm going to give you a couple of minutes just to summarize the application if you'd like to do so.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The application is to add a 4th unit into the basement of the current triplex, which converts it into a low-rise apartment and is therefore subject to alternate zoning provisions, performance standards. So upon our review, we identified which variances were required, both as a reflection of the added unit and to address some legal non-complying issues, such as the fenestration requirements on the facade. We conducted a review of the 4 tests in the Planning Act for the variances that are required and find that they do meet all 4 tests. There will also be some improvements to the site to increase the stormwater management components with regards to adding trees and soft landscaping.
All right, thank you for that summary. So I believe the committee has, again, all of the information that they need to—
Madam Chair. My apologies. Perhaps the applicant could clarify if there's an amendment to this application.
Thank you very much, Deputy Secretary Treasurer, on this. So I do want to make, just for the record, a housekeeping amendment.
Correct.
So that is the deletion of minor variance E, which relates to the aggregate soft landscaping area of 26%.
That's correct.
All right.
That,
so we
that
have
variance would be deleted.
All right. Thank you. So we're good on that.
Yes,
Okay, so thank you very much for your time, then Ms. McCrae.
thank you.
So that brings us to, I believe we're going to go to application number 2 for 259 Glynn, sorry. And Ms. Hill is on remotely, if I
Madam
understand.
Chair, just to clarify on that last item, that item is reserved.
Yes. So if I didn't say that, then Ms. McQuaig, just to be sure, it is reserved and you will get the decision within the 10 days. All right, thanks. All right, going back to Ms. Hill. Do we have Ms. Hill on? I don't see her. Ah, hello, Ms. Hill.
Hi.
All right, so Ms. Hill, the panel is going to request a brief presentation from you, if possible, as a start.
Okay. Great, thank you. So our proposal is to build 2 back to front semis, as you see here. They're fairly standard now in the city. They're on standard sized lots. They meet all the zoning performance standards for long semis under the zoning. Next slide, please. This is the site plan. So you see units 1 and 2 on one side of the lot, units 3 and 4 on the other, a driveway down the center leading to some rear yard parking, a limited amount of rear yard parking to allow for tree preservation along the back lot line. You'll see 2 doors on the front, one on the front of each building, and then doors halfway down the driveway. And those are to the additional dwelling units. There will be 1 dwelling unit in each basement, 1 dwelling unit on each ground floor, and then another on each second floor. Next slide, please. So this is in a context, a neighborhood context, where there's a mix of singles, semis, and triplexes. And you can see quite a variety of building footprints, but generally built forms lining the streets have 2 stories. So this should fit right in. Next slide, please. It's a couple of images of the site. Next slide. Next slide. So you'll see on our site plan, we have a long dash and dot in lines indicating the different parcels. And we're before you today to request a severance to allow the units to be owned individually. So units 1 through 4 would be under separate ownerships. Each ownership then would include 1 primary unit and 2 secondary units or 2 additional units. Next slide, please. So here you see the division of ownerships that we're proposing. The front units are simple rectangular shapes in the red and purple colors. The rear units, blue and green, include the entire backyard, but also have a flag-shaped portion of land that extends forward to the street, allowing these rear units to be serviced independently from the front units. Now, easements. If you could just go back to that slide for a sec. We are requesting there's these 4 ownerships, however, you'll see more parts. So it's also broken down a little bit more granularly in order to allow for easements for every possible eventuality. Primarily, we want to allow rights for vehicular and pedestrian access to the back for the front units. And everybody is to share that driveway down the center. So there are easements to allow for that, also to allow for underground servicing from the back to the front. For units 1 and 3, there are little side easements labeled Part 1 and Part 8. And those easements will allow for meters to be hung on the wall of those front units and used by the rear units. It's more convenient for utilities to position the meters in that way. And if there are any site servicing concerns that need to be addressed during the permit phase, if there are any surface or stormwater related features, they would also be managed with those kinds of easement rights that we're proposing. So we think that our easements are kind of covering all bases, possibilities and eventualities. And otherwise, the ownership structure is quite simple. Next slide, please. So that's about it. We're pleased to be contributing 12 new homes in a time of housing crisis in a way that's pretty simple and orderly and will fit in nicely in the streetscape.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hill. Did you want to run through the modifications to the notice at this point, which is specifically, we're starting to talk about some of the wording for the easements. My understanding is in addition to what we have in the notice, we're adding. Did you want to run through them? Do you have the list? Because I can let you do that if you will.
I don't have it on a slide, no.
All right, then let me read it into the record for you and you can just confirm it.
Thank you.
So for the first one where we talk about over part 1 in favor of parts 3 and 4 to provide access and location of gas and hydrometers, we're adding to that over part 1 in favor of parts 3 to 8 for servicing, maintenance and stormwater management, correct?
That's correct.
Second one, we're not making any changes. Third one, over part 4 in favor of parts 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, and 8 to provide pedestrian access and unit entrances and for servicing, maintenance, and stormwater management, correct?
Yes.
Okay, the next one, we're adding for over part 8 in favor of parts 5 and 6 to provide access and location of gas and hydrometers. Over part 8 in favor of parts 1 to 6 for servicing, maintenance, and stormwater management, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, the next one, no change. And then finally, over part 5 in favor of parts 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8 to provide pedestrian access to unit entrances and for servicing, maintenance, and stormwater management, correct?
That is correct.
All right, now I believe that's all we have with regards to some of the housekeeping changes to the notice. Okay, with that, then I'm opening it up to members of the panel for questions. Anyone? Yes, Member Blatherwick, go ahead, please.
Ms. Hill, curious, the amount of amenity open space on this site, how much will there be? For 12 units?
As you can see on the site plan. So if it's not designated as driveway or parking space, it's intended for the amenity and use of the residents.
And how much is that as a percentage of the lot area?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have that calculation handy.
Okay, all right. Second question, is this application subject to site plan control?
No, it's not.
And why not? It's 12 units.
Okay, so it's only 4 primary units and once it's severed, it's only 2 primary units. So under the zoning, it's semis with 2 primary units only per building. Bill 23 makes provision for 2 additional dwelling units to match each primary unit and specifically specifies that that doesn't make it subject to site plan review. So this is all following Bill 23, the intent of Bill 23. And with respect to the amenity space, also applying Bill 23 in our existing zoning, there are no amenity requirements for semis.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hill.
Any other questions from panel members? Okay, just gonna ask Ms. Linker then, can you just confirm, I know Ms. Hill, I'm sure, gave us all the right references, but is there anything that you'd like to add to that at all?
Sorry, just getting my camera on. Thank you, Madam Chair. I can confirm that I agree that there are no amenity area requirements for long semi-detached dwellings. And I can confirm that it's my understanding that site plan control isn't required for the subject development.
All right, thank you for that confirmation. I do have one question for you, Ms. Hill. Can you tell me a little bit about the public consultation that you undertook as part of the process for this? proposal?
We didn't undertake public consultation for this because it's such a simple severance application.
So no, you didn't speak to the neighbors next door, any of that? Because we do have a
No,
registered
we-
speaker, so I was just wondering the extent to which some of those discussions occurred in advance.
Yeah, no, we didn't speak to the neighbors. Absolutely during, prior to the construction process, we always recommend that the site super is in direct contact with neighbors to make sure everybody knows what's happening during the construction process. But it's, yeah, we didn't talk to them yet.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions then? Nope, okay. And Ms. Linker, I think from your part, your perspective, no additional comments on the application for us to consider?
That's correct. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Okay, so if there's no other questions from the panel on this, I'm going to go to the public portion on the hearing of this application. I'm going to go to our speakers list first to see if we have anyone who. And I think we have, well, nobody on my speakers list now. I do know that we have had some people who have provided some comments. So I'm going to make a call out then. I see somebody has their hand up. So maybe we'll go to that person first. And I'm going to need your full name and your municipal address, please.
Hello, can you hear me? I hope, yeah, I think
We
so.
can hear you.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak, Madam Chair. My name is Chandresa Hassanai, and I live at 228 Glynn, so right a few houses down on the same street. I saw the notice for this, but based on what the notice is saying, it's very difficult to tell what exactly is happening. I decided to show up and to see what the proposal is, as we were not consulted. And I think if you're going to be going from a 1 unit, essentially a single household, to a 12 units, the neighborhood should be consulted. My question is, 12 units means 12 cars. How many parking spots will be available? In this neighborhood is seeing intensification, which is awesome, and I'm all for it. I live in a unit that is considered an intensification unit. However, everybody's got a car and the street is full of cars. And I'm noticing that new places that are sometimes going overboard with the buildings, they're not providing any parking spots on the property, and then everything ends up on the street. So I'm unclear on what the process is to be consulting people, to be able to provide feedback, to be able to come up with a solution that for sure supports intensification. I live in an intensified unit. I've supported 100%, but 12 units is a lot.
Sorry, Ms. Candresa. If you, so are there any other questions you have? So I'd like to get sort of all the questions out, and then we can ask them of the right people after you've had a chance to provide them.
I think those were all my questions, and I think a process improvement that I would ask of the city would be for when a notice is posted, and once you go to the link there should be the application for the neighborhood to review. I think that would also help, because I went there and I didn't see an application to review or to comment on ahead of time.
All right, so we are noting, and so I'm not sure what's on, like what goes to that link at this point, but if ever you're in that situation, do reach out to committee staff. They will be able to help you with getting that information. So it's they're there to help. So so please don't hesitate to do that. Okay, so on the parking, Ms. Hill, if you could please answer that question.
Yes, we're providing 2 parking spaces. There is no parking requirement. We are choosing to provide 2 spaces. We have raised concern about infill and parking with the city. In fact, I raise it with them regularly, probably tired of me saying it. There needs to be across the city a solution, a clear plan for how we're going to manage parking and intensification. But to propose that we slow intensification while the planning department comes up with a solution would be really irresponsible. So we continue to support and design intensification. We're aware that there are concerns about parking, and we encourage the city to get on it. In the meantime, our client will be renting the units to households who don't have, only 2 of whom will have cars. Of course, realistically, we know that eventually there will run out of a supply of households who don't have cars. But for now, our client is confident that he can find enough people to rent these units without vehicle parking attached.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad you raised that because that was going to be one of my questions. So, you know, how realistic is your agent, or sorry, your applicant in terms of that requirement? Because it may be hard to find that, you know, that's a lot of units to find people who have no requirement for a car. So, okay. With that, then I'm going to make a call out there's to anyone else that would like to address the committee, whether online or in person. All right, I'm not seeing anybody else come forward. Want to give the panel just a chance if any questions come to mind, anything that they might like to raise. All right, I'm not seeing anything there. So with that, then, Ms. Hill, I believe you have a couple of minutes to summarize if you'd like to do so.
Okay, thank you. So we're proposing long semis, similar to long semis that you've seen before. However, we're applying the Bill 23 multiple additional dwelling units. The severance is typical. It's the same severance that has come before the committee time and time again in over the past 3 or 4 years with long back to front semis. And the only difference now would be the Bill 23 additional units. So I would ask that you don't make your decision based on Bill 23, that you don't use this decision to judge Bill 23, but that you make your decision based on the merits of the proposed severance and the zoning compliant long semis or front to back semis that are proposed here. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Hill, any issues with any of the conditions or a number of them? I just want to make sure that that they're clear.
No, they're all fine. Thank you.
All right, I just do have one question for Ms. Linker though on condition number 2. We often require the removal of, I guess, the accessory structure. Is that all we're removing in this case? No, we're removing a house as well. And what I didn't see was the wording about capping services. Is there a reason? Did I miss something?
If I might have.
Chair, I'm just going to double check the report.
All right, Ms. Hill, did you want to speak to that?
I think because the removal of the building requires a demolition permit, the demolition permit can't be received until we have capped all of the services and have signatures to attest to their appropriate disconnections. So I think condition to demolish the building is covering all the bases.
All right, I'm just asking because we've seen that wording in the past. It's been sort of standard wording that seems to have dropped off. So be it if that's the case. That's great. I just want to get confirmation from staff that we haven't missed anything here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do not see that wording in the condition. However, if that wording can be added to that condition, if that satisfies.
Can you confirm?
I'm fine with.
Let me just finish my question with Ms. Linker. So Ms. Linker, then what Ms. Hill has been suggesting is that through the demolition pyramid, all of that's covered anyway. So I don't want to be redundant. So if that's the case, then we can leave it the way it is.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's my understanding that the demolition permit and clearance does include the capping of the services.
All right, then so be it. If that's the new wording, we're good. So with that, then Ms. Hill, the committee has the information it needs to make a decision, and we will be reserving our decision. So thank you for your time today. And we're going to move on to our last application.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. So that brings us to item number 6, 22 Sims Avenue, looking for Ms. Daou. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Daou, we are going to request a presentation from you.
Absolutely.
I have slides that have been shared with the committee staff.
Just a moment. So there is one application where you don't have the staff deck in.
I
So,
did send it about 20 minutes before. I apologize for that, but
we have it?
I can do the oath if you'd like.
Well, if we've got the written version, then I think we're okay, but I just want to confirm that with our committee staff.
Madam Chair, I can confirm we have received it just recently.
Yay. Okay.
Thank you.
Back to you on a presentation. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Today, I'm here before you to speak to an application for minor variances of the site located at 22 Sims Avenue. This is a proposal for a development of a low-rise apartment building with 7 dwelling units, purpose-built rental units, located in Hintonburg, fronting on the south side of Sims Avenue, just north of Highway 417, east of Parkdale and south of Gladstone. This site is designated as neighborhood with the evolving overlay in the inner urban transect area of the official plan and zoned R4UB with the mature neighborhoods overlay. Next slide, please. So the proposal is to construct a new low-rise apartment building, again with 7 rental units. Variances are required to permit reduced front yard setback of 2.4 meters, whereas 2.9 is required. Reduced rear yard setback and area of 18% of the lot depth and area respectively, whereas 25% of the depth and area are required respectively. And reduced lot area of 260.5 square meters, whereas 300 square meters is required for a low-rise apartment building with up to 8 dwelling units. So of note, this site has an angled front and rear lot line condition. So the requested relief in both the front and rear is requested at the most restrictive points of the building facade to both the front and rear lot lines, with most of the building actually being located further from those requested points respectively, and the building design does respond to these angled lot line conditions. The proposal, as you'll see on the site plan, includes 4 exterior bicycle parking spaces. There are also 4 interior bicycle parking spaces. However, they're not shown on the site plan, but they will be included in the building design. There is a waste storage enclosure that is proposed at the rear of the building that complies with the accessory building requirements under the zoning, with direct access from the street along the interior side yard setback. And with the new plans that were just filed with the committee and circulated to planning staff and forestry, we are proposing 2 additional trees on site. And this is in response to consultation with neighbors and community associations. So we are showing a new tree in the rear yard and a new tree in the front yard, which will be subject to review, of course, by Hydro Ottawa, because there are existing lines in the front along Sings Avenue. And the remainder of the site will be softly landscaped. There's no parking permitted or provided on the site. And again, the bicycle parking will be with including the interior spaces provided at exceeding a 1-to-1 unit to bicycle count ratio. I'll go to the next slide, please. And just showing the front and rear elevations. So the front facade features a stepped back 3rd-story articulation and a stepped back principal entrance, and this will help to soften the building massing from the streetscape and provide articulations. There's ample window fenestration to provide interaction with the streetscape. Next slide. The side elevations, you'll note that the windows are focused towards the interior of the building, and this is to ensure that the windows are placed outside of any requested relief areas for both the front and rear yard setbacks. And this is to ensure that there's no privacy or overlook concerns for neighboring properties. On the west facade, the windows are also proposed to be transom styles, so they are higher, and there will be no overlook anticipated, no concerns anticipated onto that neighboring property as well. Next slide. So there are other examples of 3-story townhouse buildings, just 4 properties to the west that are similar massing and scale to the development, but otherwise Sims Avenue is a varied building format ranging from 2 to 3 stories. There are other examples as well in the area of similar front and rear yard setback conditions, and many properties with garages or accessory buildings in the rear that occupy a majority of the rear yards. This proposal has been designed to be of its own character and time, while sympathetically responding to its the character and the built form of the surrounding streetscape. Sorry. Next slide, please. And I'll just touch on the rationale under the 4 tests of the Planning Act. This application is minor. This is an urban neighborhood characterized by tight lot fabrics and narrow yard setbacks with a variety of lot sizes and building typologies. Again, the requested relief for the setbacks are at the most restrictive points and truly just respond to the angled lot line configurations of this existing site, with most of the building at the front being located at least 3 meters from the front lot line and stepped back at the 3rd story with a stepped back front entrance. In the rear, the buildable area within the requested relief area that would be permitted with the I'm of course over time, would be 14.5 square meters, whereas the development occupies much less than that at 9.2 square meters. This application meets the intent of the official plan. It provides missing middle housing, which is repeatedly encouraged by the official plan policies, and it's located within the evolving overlay, which signals a gradual shift and change over time towards a more compact urban form. Again, there are ample bicycle parking spaces. There's permitted and provided waste storage that complies with the city's waste management policies. And there's ample soft landscaping at both the front and rear yards and new trees contributing to the urban tree canopy. This lot exceeds the minimum lot width requirements under the zoning bylaw, and we just need the relief in a very small amount from the lot area requirements to permit up to 8 dwelling units, whereas 7 is provided on this site. Again, no vehicle parking is permitted or proposed. And there's adequate building separation, open space, soft landscaping, and all of the other zoning requirements, including height, interior, side yard setbacks, are being complied with on this site. And the application is desirable for the appropriate development of the land by facilitating infill intensification on a residentially zoned lot with purpose-built apartment rentals in a massing and materiality that is high quality urban design, sympathetic and complementary to the neighborhood. And I'll end myself there. If you have any questions, I'm very happy to go through those.
All right, thank you for that comprehensive presentation. Members of the panel, any questions? Member Blatherwick, please.
Ms. Daou, the last time we talked about this was in May, I believe.
Yes.
And I think if you remember, I mentioned the fact that section 11 sub 5 provide direction to committee of adjustment processes in the new official plan may or may not have application here. One of the additional criteria that council has newly put in the official plan is sub 9, which says, and I'll read directly out of the OP. And the Committee of Adjustment shall, in addition to all of their policies in this plan, have regard for the following when evaluating minor variances to permit low-rise infill apartment dwellings. And it's 9A, which I'm concerned with, which strictly states or simply states variances to reduce the minimum required lot size may only be considered where adequate waste storage and management, bicycle parking, and intensive soft landscaping can be provided. So if you could just confirm that you have met that requirement in the new OP.
Thank you, Member Blatherwick. Through you, Madam Chair, we believe that this requirement is being met. On this property, we exceed all requirements under the zoning bylaw for soft landscaping, both in the front and in the rear yards. And that includes the minimum required 35 square meter green space and soft landscaping requirement, as well as the aggregated requirement to contribute to tree planting. That is being met in the rear yard. We do comply with the zoning requirements in terms of bicycle parking. 4 spaces are required under the zoning bylaw at a rate of 0.5 spaces per unit. But we are also including, and the owners have committed to including 4 additional interior parking spaces for the bicycle parking. Okay. While this does not necessarily contribute in terms of the zoning requirements because of the configuration of them, they will be practically used and they will be implemented.
That's understood, yep.
In addition to that, there's a waste storage shed that's being proposed. It will be a slab on grade building in response to our arborists' recommendations to have a slab on grade structure in the rear. Our architect is here if there are further questions about that, but it will be carbon filter and appropriately mitigating any issues in terms of smell for neighboring properties. And it will be appropriate. It is and will be appropriately sized for the City of Ottawa's waste management guidelines. And finally, we are proposing 2 additional trees, as I had mentioned previously. We will be seeking advice from our arborist, and which will be reviewed by Ms. Young at the building permit stage as to appropriate trees to be located in both the front and the rear, of course, subject to Hydro Ottawa requirements in the front. So with that said, I do find that we do comply with the additional comments that you had read from the official plan in this particular situation.
Thank you.
All right, any other?
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Member Bladrick. Any other questions from the panel? All right, then, Ms. Al-Khadir, we're going to allow you to, is there anything that we need to know that's additional on this application?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Then with that, if there's no other questions, we do have a couple of registered speakers on this application. We have Ms. Hode, who is representing the Hintonburg Community Association. So I think I'd like to start with you, Ms. Hode. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks very much. And welcome to the new committee members. Some of you I know have served on the committee before. Some of you have not served on the committee before. I am representing the Hintonburg Community Association. We met the applicant, and we do appreciate the changes that have been made as a result of that consultation, trees and the additional bicycle parking. I also wanted to make sure that you had received a communication from the neighbors, which was sent a little late. I hope we'll have a chance to look at it. There are some serious concerns. I was particularly impressed with the winter pictures. Not that did not expect such pictures. We see them all over the neighborhood. And I have to confirm what Ms. Hill had said earlier, that the idea of having no parking for all of these intensified apartment units is not going to work out. The amount of street parking that's available and the narrowness of the streets in our neighborhood in particular, I mean, we really do need to work on this. And I guess the other thing I would say in that same context, the minimum bicycle requirement is totally inadequate. If you expect people to live without a car, they are almost certainly going to have one, if not more than one bicycle. And certainly per household, there's going to be, could easily be more than one bicycle. So I don't know whether there's any way we can move that forward in the zoning bylaw process, but we keep harping on it, not just to you, but to anyone who will listen. Thank you. The other thing I would say is we have not changed our mind entirely about the appropriateness of this development. We're very disappointed that the city planning staff are over and over again quite willing to give or say no concerns about variances for rear yard, but in particular, when we were consulted about the R4U rezonings or new zoning, we were promised as community associations or interested community members that in exchange for accepting this additional intensification, we were going to get more green space, more landscaping, more amenity space in the rear yard. And it's continually being chopped away at. In this case, it is not an enormous difference, but every little bit makes a difference. If you lose some of the rear yard landscaping in every redevelopment in a block, and in blocks in Hintonburg, we're getting quite a few of them. You lose a lot of soft landscaping and often tree cover, because one tree is not always what we've lost when these developments occur. So I guess I'm asking you to carefully consider the implication of the variances requested. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hode. Does the panel have any questions for Ms. Hode? Any questions for clarification on her comments? Okay, if not, then I think what I'd like to do is maybe get some answers about the parking from you, Ms. Where are we looking? Our applicant is, have I lost our applicant? Oh, sorry.
Not used to me in real life.
Talk about having to do, so yeah, you're in real life, exactly. So With that, then, can you address the parking issues, please?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate Ms. Hode's comments. Yeah, so this proposal, again, the owners are seeking to rent to individuals who do not have cars. While of course, you know, there is always the option that they could get a car in the future. That is certainly not the intention. With this type of building in the location, it's anticipated that people will be walking, busing, or biking. And now we do have the bicycle exceeding the 1-to-1 unit count for bicycle parking. So the intention again will be to rent to individuals without cars. And there's no parking that is required or permitted on this site because it is a lot area of less than 400 square meters. The zoning bylaw does not permit parking on this site. So we are complying with those policies under the zoning bylaw. But again, the owners are intending to rent to individuals without cars.
All right, I thank you for that. And so Ms. Hode, I think some of your other concerns really speak to a process that the city is undertaking right now, which is a review of the zoning bylaw. I'm not sure exactly where the city is at on that, and maybe either Ms. Al-Khatib or Ms. Linker can provide us with that information, but it is the right process in order to get involved. So even your comments about the inappropriateness of the development, that's the time to look at form and speak to city staff during the zoning bylaw review about that. So to our planners, does anyone know where we are at with the zoning bylaw review at this point?
So like usually there is no concern with the reduction of the rear yard as long as an appropriate softscaping is provided in the front yard. And also the remaining softscaping in the rear yard and the front yard will allow the planting of trees. And that's already proposed by the applicant, providing new trees one in the rear yard and one in the front yard. And regarding amenity space, there is a few parks around the site, the subject site. So there is the Fisher Park, like less than 10 minutes walk. And on the other side, there is the I don't know how to pronounce it. There is another park on the other side. So it's all like 3 parks, less than 9 minutes walk. That's regarding providing an amenity space for the residents. So that's the city position.
Thank you, Ms. Al-Khatib, on that. So I see that Ms. Linker, do you have any additional comments on the zoning bylaw review perhaps?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The zoning bylaw review is to be consistent with the new official plan and is slated for 2024 to 2025.
All right. I'm sure there's information on the website that also provides where they're at. So I'm going to, Ms. Hode, if you know, like I said, I encourage you and the members of your association to get involved in that process.
Oh, we are involved.
Oh, okay, good. Very good. I'm glad to hear that.
Never been not involved since we were founded in 1991.
Excellent. Glad to hear that. Okay, so I think I saw a question from the Lecuyer. Thank you.
Thank you. My question, I don't know if the planners here would have an answer to this. So if residents would not, you know, I know the intention is it would be rented to individuals who don't have vehicles. And so if there would be individuals that would have vehicles, they would be applying to the city for on-street parking permit. Is that correct?
So like the site will not have space for extra parking. So that's already, but like for this lot, it's less than 400 meters square. So it's not required by the bylaw providing a parking space.
No, I understand that. I'm saying if they wanted to apply for an on-street parking permit for them to park on the street, if a resident wanted to do that.
I believe it's not true.
Thank you. For an on-street parking permits, the residents may apply to the city if their street is eligible for on-street parking permits.
Is this street eligible?
I'd have to look into that.
Okay.
Yes, Member Coakley.
Sorry, I
probably should have asked this earlier of Ms. Hode. I seem to remember you said towards the end of your presentation that you kind of was hinting, if I heard properly, that there was a specific request you were making of us, but I'm afraid I didn't quite catch what it is because I mean, I take your point about the parking and that issue. But was there a specific thing you wanted us to think about, take into account?
Basically, just to consider carefully the position of the community association and the neighbors when you're making your decision. So it's nothing specific. It is all of those things that were brought up.
All right,
I'm sure you will.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hood. If there's no other question, then for Ms. Hood, we'll go on to the next speaker, which would be Ms. Colette. Do we have Ms. Colette? I'm not seeing Ms. Colette. We have a Mr. Watkins. So we'll go to Mr. Watkins then. Come on forward, Mr. Watkins. Mr. Watkins, did you want to speak?
Hello.
Oh,
hi.
Ms.
Sorry,
Watkins.
sorry.
Okay.
I'm just using my boyfriend's computer. Sorry.
It's okay. So I need your name just to start. I need your name
Yeah,
and your municipal address, please.
Chair, it's Linda Collette, and I live at 24 Sims Avenue, which is the property immediately west of 22 Sims. So I would just want to express 3 points. I know I'd submitted a laundry list, like 9 points. Anyways, just cut to the chase. So I have 3 points I want to touch on is the digging of the foundation close to my property line, the water grading, and the waste management. Now, for the property, for the foundation, my home was built in 1903, and I understand that that the city requires 1.5 meter setback to dig the foundation. But I'm concerned because my house is so old that the footings won't, that I'm really afraid that my house is going to pretty well fall into the neighboring foundation. And I know this has happened before in the city, so that's really my main concern. And what's the recourse if something does go wrong with that issue? The second is the water grading. Previously, I've had water in my foundation, and so I just wanted to make sure that the water will flow away from my home once the building has is finished. And also the waste management. Now the waste management is it's currently proposed right against my property line, like 0.6 meters from my property line. And my question is, why is it on my side of the property line? Why can't it be in the middle, which there's a garage right behind that no one would see the receptacle, and yeah, or have it along the building, and yeah, so that you're not pitting, like, I know no one wants garbage right beside their property line, but then why not have it in the middle or behind along the building? And I think that's really all I wanted to say, other than I echo the sentiment of the parking. There's only 8 parking spots on Sims currently, and it's a very narrow street. So, but that's been dealt with, so I don't really want to rehash that. And there are no other low-rise apartment buildings on Sims Avenue. I know the city wants to create more homes, but from 2 units to 7 units, that's quite a change in the plans. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Ms. Colette. So let me just speak to your points then. On the digging near the foundation, that is, And actually, your second point with regards to grading of the site, all those issues are taken care of as part of the building permit process. So if there is an issue during construction, then at that time you can reach out to the city's building code services and speak with them. There'll surely be an inspector who will be assigned to the project. So that would be your opportunity to make sure that if there are any issues that they're dealt with. On the waste management side and the location with regards to the design of the site, I'm going to leave that to Ms. Daou to answer, if you will, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This garbage shed has been designed in such a way that its location would limit the amount of hardscaping that would be on site and covering the rear yard to ensure that we can provide as much as possible in terms of soft landscaping. It does comply with the required setbacks in terms of accessory building structures, which are required to be 0.6 meters from both the front and rear lot lines. If we were to shift the garbage shed closer to the east, because of the angled rear lot line that you can see on the site plan, it would be challenging to meet the required clearances between the building to appropriately bring the waste out of the shed around the building, and also comply with the required setback at 0.6 meters from the rear lot line. So if we were to move that over, you can see that there kind of becomes a pinch point on that most southeasterly corner of the garbage shed. So it does comply with the zoning requirements in terms of accessory buildings. We're again trying to limit as much as possible the hardscaping on site and make it the most direct and easy access to that waste storage, both for snow removal in the winter and just for ease of access, bringing it to the street on collection days.
All right, thank you, Ms. Daou. So I think we did get an answer to your question then, Ms. Cadet, on that. It sounds like there was some thought put into where it really should be located. So, and it is in keeping with the zoning bylaw as Ms. Daou has suggested. So thank you. Is there anyone on the panel who has questions for Ms. Cadet though at this point? No? All right. So thank you for your time today. I'm going to make a call out for anyone else, either don't think there's anybody left in the audience, anybody online who would like to speak either for or against this application. Now's your chance. All right, I'm not seeing anybody come forward on that then. Okay, so Ms. Daou, you've had a chance to look at all of the additional comments and okay, so you're up to speed on all that. Going to give you a couple of minutes then to give us a summary if you'd like.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With the information that I had submitted in support of the application, the planning cover letter, in addition to the presentation that I've provided today, I won't go into too much more detail. However, I will just close with this application is seeking relief on provisions that are primarily as a result of the unique lot configuration of this site on Sims Avenue with that angled front and angled rear lot lines. So the building has been very thoughtfully designed to ensure that it complies with as many as possible in terms of zoning requirements, while providing very much needed missing middle housing typology in the urban area. The new official plan focuses on the provision of these types of units in low-rise apartment dwelling typologies in a 15-minute neighborhood, which this proposal does contribute to those official plan policies in consideration of the fact that we do comply with all other zoning requirements in terms of interior side yard setbacks, which are actually greater than what would be required for any other development permitted as of right on this site. So we're provided 1.5 meter side yard setbacks, whereas single family homes, semi-detached dwellings, long semis would all require either 1.2 or 0.6. So it does provide wider than otherwise permitted as of right on the site. So given those components of the application and in addition to the information already submitted, I will close with that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Daou. So I think the committee then has, again, the information it needs to make a decision. We will be reserving our decision. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
All right. With that, then it brings us to the end of the agenda. And I'm going to ask for a mover to adjourn. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Member Coakley. Do I have a seconder? Mr. Keklikian, thank you. So